Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio, so today we're talking about a new Sudowoodo card. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, and this makes me very, very happy, because we're just about to lose to the rotation the Sudowoodo from BreakPoint, which is really good with counter energy and the watch and learn attack. Now, to be fair, we've still got the one from Guardians Rising with a roadblock ability, which lowers your opponent's bench, and given that Skyfield is a thing and expanded, is a great tech in a whole bunch of expanded decks. But as an attacker, we're losing the good Sudowoodo. Well, that's alright, because when Lost Thunder comes around in November, we're going to have a new one. Now, I should mention, as always, our translation here comes from the lovely David Hochmann over at Hochmann TCG. Do be checking out limitlesstcg.com on a regular basis. It's a great website. So what does Sudowoodo do? Well, it's a fighting Pokemon, and this is really, really good. Fighting Pokemon, okay, when the rotation comes around, they're losing strong energy, and that kind of sucks. But you're still going to have Diancie Prism Star to do an extra 20 damage. You're still going to have Brooklet Hill, which makes Sudowoodo incredibly easy to get out and on the bench. You're still going to have both Boswell and Lycanroc, who are amazing partners for any fighting Pokemon. And you're still going to be hitting weakness on Pokemon like Zoroark. So as far as I'm concerned, fighting, still a great typing to have. Now, the weakness to water is fine, to be perfectly honest. Maybe Empoleon becomes big. As it is at the moment, water is not a bad weakness to have at all. Retreat cost of 2, I'm going to be honest, little bit of a pain, because a skateboard won't give you free retreat. It only reduces by 1, which means you will still have a retreat cost. And as for 110 HP, yeah, it's a fairly big non-GX basic. It's right up there with stuff like Tapu Koko, so I cannot particularly complain. But is it any good? Is the attack any good? Well, according to David, what happens is that it generally does 20 damage, which, to be honest, not particularly good. But if it's active and got damaged by an attack during your opponent's previous turn, it does 80 more damage. So the good news is 100 damage for 1 energy is frankly nuts good, especially on a basic. The bad news is this is not a particularly easy attack to get rolling here. So, essentially, if you're just doing the 20 damage, we're not particularly loving it. Even if you add on a Choice Band and a Diancie Prism Star, you're still only doing 70 base damage. That's 140. With weakness against something like a Zoroark, it's not good enough. If you want a single energy fighting attacker for next format, might I suggest the new Regirock, which came around in Celestial Storm, and of which I am quite the fan. Like that. This, I mean, look, if you're not getting the other part of this, it's no good, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, it's not good. But if you're hitting 100 for 1 energy, then we are very, very happy indeed. Now, the thing is, you're not actually quite hitting the numbers. So against a Zoroark, you'd be doing 200 damage, and maybe you had a Choice Band, it goes up to 260, you're good. Maybe you had a Diancie Prism Star, it goes up to 240, you're good. There's a lot to like about this. However, it's still not quite enough. And if you're against a non-EX, non-GX, and you're not hitting for weakness, 100 really isn't all that much damage. I mean, fine, you can get the evolving Pokemon. Something like an Alolan Vulpix is going down here. And something like Curlia is going down here. But let's say you're up against an Alolan Ninetales. Even though you're going through the ability, and you are able to hit it because you are a non-GX Pokemon, well, it's still got 110 HP. So you're not actually getting the KO here. 100 damage is not all that much damage, and that's a little bit sad. And bearing in mind, this is when it works. It's not always going to work. Because we do need now to sit and have a look and a think about this whole, if it was active last turn, and it took damage. So essentially, you've got to leave Sudowoodo in the active, let it take a hit, and then it does lots of damage. Yay! I mean, if you're not KO'd, This is actually a really good argument for Last Chance Potion, which I still think should be called Desperation Potion, but that's just me. Now, you'd have to have 30 or less HP remaining, but that would be really cool, because then you'd be able to completely heal up and you'd be off. Or actually, you could even use Max Potion here, because the great thing is you don't need to leave an energy on Sudowoodo. You just leave Sudowoodo in the active, it gets hit, and then you hit them back. And you attach the energy right before you attack, and it is one basic energy on a basic Pokemon, making it a spectacularly easy card to put in your deck and a spectacularly easy card to actually use once this extra little requirement is met. You see, the big problem with Sudowoodo is just going to be KO'd a lot. I mean, one of the best uses for this is getting a one-hit KO on a Zoroark GX, which a lot of the time it will. Here's the problem. Zoroark does 120 with a full bench, which means it's KOing you. Now, this does lead to a fantastic double Sudowoodo all the way across the sky combination here. You use a Roadblock Sudowoodo to make sure your opponent can only have 4 bench Pokemon. Then they can only hit 100. They cannot one-hit KO you. You Max Potion, and then you one-hit KO them. It's a little bit convoluted, if I'm honest, ladies and gentlemen. And they can use Alolan Muck to get around it. And I've been talking quite a lot about the fact that Alolan Muck should be seeing more play. But let's ignore all of that for the moment. Double Sudowoodo. That's got to be worth a play. And actually, in the expanded format, you got Focus Sash. Now, Focus Sash is a tool that kind of operates when your opponent attacks, so there's every possibility they're just going to play a Field Blower and get rid of it, and that's going to suck, blah, blah, blah. But Focus Sash, you get hit. Focus Sash falls off if you would be one-hit KO'd. And if Focus Sash is on Sudowoodo, it guarantees that you won't be KO'd, which means you can then do 100 for 1 energy. And look, 100 for a basic energy on a non-GX basic Pokemon is great. Golisopod's a stage 1 that does 120 as a GX. This is a basic that does 100 on a non-GX. But the biggest issue here, you've got to let it take a hit. Yeah, your opponent can play something like a Guzma and attack the bench, but more likely they'll just KO it. The thing is, there's going to be plenty of times your opponent can't KO you, and that is where Sudowoodo shines. So take something like a Buzzwole, for instance. Buzzwole's not getting a KO here. Now, sure, once they get free energy on, they're getting a KO with Knuckle Impact, but generally they need Beast Ring, which means you need to have taken some prizes. So if you, at the beginning of the game against the Buzzwole, chuck a Sudowoodo in the active, this is going to be great. Because you're taking 50 damage if they've got a Diancie Prism Star, and you're doing minimum 100 back, 120 with a Diancie Prism Star, 150 if you had a Choice Band, and so on and so forth. There's a lot to like here, but I fear it might be a bit too awkward. If you've got the Guardians Rising Sudowoodo on your bench, then this is great against Zoroark. If you're against a Buzzwole that doesn't have free energy, this is really, really good. Anytime your opponent cannot one-hit KO you, this is great. But I fear there's going to be too many times your opponent can. And for that reason, I'm giving it 3 Wassies. This is the kind of card you put in your binder, because you may end up playing it. And look, given that we've got Brooklet Hill making it so easy to search out basic fighting Pokemon, and it is just 1 card in your deck, I do think it's worth having in your binder. I do think it's worth teching into some decks. And if you ever find yourself against a deck and you are confident that they cannot do 110 damage to a non-GX, out comes Sudowoodo and becomes a phenomenal attacker, or forces your opponent to waste their Guzma getting around it, either of which is a win for you. But anytime your opponent can do 110 damage, which is really not that hard, then it becomes a bit of an issue, and I'm sorry, but that's where I come down on Sudowoodo. But maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think this is the sequel to the BreakPoint Sudowood for which we've been waiting. Well, great news. There's a comment section. So go nuts, but remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.